$138,000. Not what a bad investment decision cost you. Not what happens when you panic sell at the bottom of a crash or follow a hot stock tip from someone at a barbecue. That is the average amount a typical American worker loses. Quietly, invisibly, without a single bill arriving in the mail, just in fees. Inside the retirement account their employer offered as a benefit, the one they were told to max out. $138,000 gone before retirement, while they did everything right. Here's what makes this particular number worth sitting with. It doesn't come from negligence. It doesn't come from fraud. It comes from a system that was built very deliberately to be difficult to see. And the way it works, the actual mechanism, is something I spent 30 years inside the industry understanding. I sat in rooms where these plans were designed. I know what was prioritized in those rooms, and it was not your retirement balance. My attorney, who reviewed this script and highlighted 4 sentences, would like me to clarify that what follows is educational content. He would also like a salary adjustment. Both requests have been received. One of them is more likely than the other. Here's what we're going to work through. By the end of this video, you're going to understand 3 things I want you to hold open right now. First, exactly how the fee structure inside a 401k is constructed, and why it's specifically designed to be invisible. Second, what 1 percentage point in annual fees actually costs you over a career, in real dollars, not percentages, and why that number is almost impossible to emotionally process until you see it calculated. Third, what the concrete exit looks like. Not educate yourself as a vague suggestion. Specific steps, starting tonight. 3 open questions. All 3 get closed before I'm done. Let me start where most people don't, because it explains everything that follows. In the 1980s, the American retirement system underwent a structural shift that changed the financial trajectory of virtually every working person in this country. The old model was a pension, a defined benefit plan. Your employer guaranteed a specific monthly income in retirement, funded it, managed it, bore the investment risk. You showed up, you worked, they handled the math. The new model, the 401k, transferred that responsibility to the employee. You contribute, you choose the funds, you bear the investment risk. The employer's obligation is to offer the plan. What happens inside it is largely your problem. Now, here's the part that never got announced in the press release. When trillions of dollars shifted from employer-managed pension funds into individual employee accounts, accounts that couldn't easily leave, accounts that would sit invested for 30 to 40 years, the financial services industry suddenly had access to something extraordinary. A captive, long-term asset base. Hundreds of millions of accounts, all of them needing investment vehicles, all of them staying put for decades. The question became, how do you generate consistent, predictable revenue from assets you don't own? The answer was a fee structure. Not aggressive, not criminal, not even particularly alarming when you look at any single number. Just a quiet, annual percentage taken from every dollar, every year, compounding in reverse for the duration of a career. 1% sounds like nothing. I've seen people physically shrug at it. $1 on every 100. Who cares? Let me show you what $1 on every 100 taken every year for 40 years actually means. Take a person earning $60,000 a year. They contribute 10%, $6,000 annually. Their employer matches 50 cents on every dollar up to 3% of salary. That's another $900. So they're putting in $6,900 per year total. They start at 25. Market returns average 7% annually. They retire at 65. 40 years. Now I run two versions of this exact scenario. Version A, total annual fees of 1%. Version B, total annual fees of 0.1%. Same contributions, same market returns, same 40 years. One variable. Version A ends with approximately $750,000. Version B ends with approximately $1,070,000. The gap is $320,000, not from making better investments, not from earning more money, from paying 0.9% less in annual fees. And most Americans inside 401k plans are paying significantly more than 1% in total fees. Many are paying between 1.5% and 2.5%. Because the fee structure isn't one layer, it's three, stacked so that no single charge looks alarming on its own. This is the wealth extraction machine. Let me show you exactly how it runs. Layer 1 is the expense ratio. Every mutual fund charges an annual percentage fee just to operate the fund. It's deducted daily from the fund's net asset value, meaning it never appears as a line item on your statement. It simply reduces the return you receive, invisibly, every single trading day. The average actively managed mutual fund charges between 0.7% and 1.2% annually. Low-cost index funds, when they're available inside your plan, can charge between 0.02% and 0.2%. That gap of roughly 1 full percentage point between an actively managed fund and its index equivalent does not sound dramatic. Over 30 years, on a $200,000 portfolio, it compounds to somewhere between $150,000 and $220,000 in foregone wealth, depending on market returns. And the actively managed fund, the expensive one, historically underperforms its index benchmark net of fees in the majority of cases over long time horizons. Not in every case. On average, you are paying more for statistically less. Layer 2 is the plan administration fee. Running a 401k plan costs money. Record keeping, compliance, participant services, technology platforms. Those costs get paid. The question is how they get paid and by whom. In many cases, those costs are passed to employees, not as a visible charge, embedded inside the expense ratios of the funds your employer places on the investment menu. And here's where the conflict of interest enters, quietly, and sits down at the table. Fund companies want to be on your company's plan menu. Being on the menu means access to a captive pool of assets, potentially billions of dollars, that will sit invested in those funds for decades. So some fund companies practice what's called revenue sharing. They pay a portion of their expense ratio back to the plan administrator as compensation for being included on the platform. This is legal. It is disclosed. It is disclosed inside your summary plan description, in a subsection titled something like Compensation Paid by Investment Options, written in language that is technically accurate and functionally unreadable to any person who is not already a compliance attorney. What it means in practice is this: the lowest cost funds often don't make the menu, because they don't generate enough revenue sharing to be worth the administrative relationship. The funds with higher expense ratios, the ones that can afford to share a portion of what they collect, get the shelf space. Your limited investment menu is not a neutral act of curation. It is a business arrangement, and you are on the paying end of it. Layer 3 is where it starts to feel personal. If your plan includes any form of advisory service, or if you've worked with an advisor who has your assets in certain plan-linked structures, there is likely an additional annual fee layered on top of the first two. The average advisory fee runs around 1% annually. Some structures package this as a wrap fee, covering trading, administration, and advice together, which can run between 1 and 2%. Add the layers. Expense ratio at 1%, embedded plan administration at 0.4%, advisory or wrap fee at 1%, you're at 2.4% annually before you've generated a single dollar of return. A 2.4% annual drag on a 40-year 7% return scenario does not cost you 2.4% of your ending balance. It costs you roughly 40 to 55% of what that balance could have become. Because fees don't just remove money, they remove compounding. Every dollar that leaves as a fee isn't just that dollar. It's every dollar that dollar would have generated for the next 30 years. Death by 1,000 cuts. Compounding backwards. For a career. Let me give you a face for this. Marcus is 38. He makes $72,000 a year. He's been contributing to his company's 401k for 11 years. Current balance, $87,000. He contributes 6%. His employer matches up to 4%. He thinks he's doing well, and relative to the national average at his age, he genuinely is. Marcus selected his funds from the plan menu when he enrolled at 27. He picked names he recognized: a balanced fund, a large cap growth fund, a target date fund for extra safety. He hasn't changed the allocation since. His blended expense ratio, weighted across all three funds, is 1.3%. His plan has an embedded record-keeping fee of roughly 0.3%. His total annual drag is approximately 1.6%. Marcus has never seen the number 1.6% written anywhere on his statement. By 65, if his contribution rate holds, the math suggests Marcus will have quietly paid somewhere between $120,000 and $170,000 in fees. That money won't show as a loss. He'll simply retire with significantly less than the math would have otherwise produced. Marcus isn't careless. Marcus is average. That is the problem. The system isn't broken, Marcus. It's working exactly as designed. Now, the objection, because I know it's coming. But Alistair, the employer match. Even with fees, the match makes it worth it. Yes, absolutely. A matching contribution is one of the genuinely good financial arrangements available to working people. If your employer matches 50 cents on every dollar you put in, up to some limit, you receive a 50% return on those dollars the moment they enter the account. No fee structure in a rational universe erases that math. Contributing up to the employer match is close to an inviolable principle. I'm not here to argue with it. But here's the part that gets missed. The match justifies contributing to the match limit. It does not mean you should be indifferent to the fees you pay on the entire balance over 40 years. And it does not mean you've finished thinking about the problem. The match is the price of entry. Once you're in, you still need to know what you're paying. And most people who get in stop looking. They set a contribution percentage, pick a target date fund, and never open the account again except to check the balance. That target date fund, by the way, the default set-it-and-forget-it option, often carries an expense ratio between 0.7 and 1.1%. It's not predatory. It's not the worst fund on the menu. But you should know what you're paying. And you should know whether alternatives exist. Here's something most participants don't know their plan contains. A growing number of employer 401k plans include an option called a self-directed brokerage window. This is, essentially, a door inside the plan. Step through it, and your assets move into a brokerage account with access to a much wider universe of investment options, including very low-cost index funds that aren't on the standard menu. Call HR. Ask one question. Does our 401k have a self-directed brokerage window? Some plans have it. Nobody tells participants it exists. Because the funds on the standard menu generate revenue sharing. The brokerage window doesn't. Before you do anything else on this list, ask that question. One more number, then we move to the exit. According to analysis from investment research organizations, American workers collectively pay somewhere in the range of $23 billion annually in 401k fees. $23 billion every year. From accounts designed to build retirement security, flowing into the financial services industry. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a business model. And it has been running at scale for 40 years. Let's close the loops. What is the expense ratio actually doing to your retirement balance? It is compounding in reverse. Every basis point you pay annually removes capital from the pool that would otherwise continue generating returns. The damage is not linear. It's exponential in the wrong direction. 1% in fees doesn't cost you 1% of your ending balance. Over 3 to 4 decades, it costs you 30 to 50% of what that balance could have been. Why does your plan have a limited menu? Because the selection of funds reflects, in part, the revenue-sharing arrangements between fund companies and plan administrators. Cheaper funds don't always make the list. This is disclosed in documents designed to be technically compliant and practically invisible to anyone who isn't already looking for it. What does the exit look like? Not dramatic, not a rebellion. 5 concrete things. 1. Calculate your total fee drag this week. Log into your account. Find every fund you hold. Search each ticker symbol, plus the words expense ratio. It's public information. Write down each number. Weight them by the percentage of your balance in each fund. Add them up. That single blended number is your annual fee drag. If it's above 0.5%, you have room to improve. If it's above 1%, you are paying a significant premium for no guaranteed benefit. 2. Check whether your plan includes lower-cost index options. Many plans do. They're just not the default selection. You may find an index fund charging 0.03% sitting on the same menu as an actively managed fund charging 1.1%. I'm not telling you which to choose. I'm saying you should make that choice with full awareness of what the long-term difference means. 3. Ask HR about the self-directed brokerage window. Ask today. Ask by email so you have a record. Some windows carry a small annual fee. Others don't. In many cases, it unlocks access to a vastly wider, lower-cost fund universe than the standard menu provides. 4. Consider supplementing with an IRA. A Roth or traditional IRA, with contribution limits currently at $7,000 per year for most people, lets you choose your own custodian, your own funds, your own fee structure, entirely independent of your employer's plan. Many custodians offer access to extremely low-cost index options with no account fees. This is your alternative to the limited menu problem. 5. Run the 40-year projection yourself. Use any compound interest calculator. There are free ones everywhere. Plug in your current balance, your expected annual contribution, your assumed return. Run it at your current blended expense ratio. Then run it again at 0.1%. The number in the second scenario is not a fantasy. It is the math. It is what you would have if the fee structure were different. Tonight's homework. Log in to your 401k. Find one fund. Look up its expense ratio, one number, just to start. Here's what I want you to sit with. You didn't design this system. Nobody sat you down at 23 and explained fee layering. Nobody showed you the two-scenario projection on your first day of work. You were handed a form, told to pick a contribution rate and a few fund names, and nobody mentioned that the menu was constructed with considerations that have nothing to do with your retirement outcomes. You weren't careless. You were operating without information, in an environment that was built to keep it that way. Now you're not. For the record, and my lawyer loves when I say for the record, nothing in this video constitutes financial advice. Your situation is yours. The numbers I showed you are universal. What you do with them is entirely personal. He can bill me for that sentence. What I'll add, without legal input, is that the numbers don't lie. The 3 fee layers are real. The revenue-sharing arrangement is real. The brokerage window that exists but nobody advertises is real. The gap between what Marcus will retire with and what he could have retired with is real. And you now have information they genuinely hoped you would never sit down and calculate. What's your expense ratio? Drop it in the comments. I want to see what we're actually dealing with out there.